Ah, hello, sir. I see you've decided to make an unexpected visitation. Well, you came just in the nick of time. I just finished a new batch of experiments for our own little army. That fusion piece you gave me is quite full of surprises. Only a few months ago I found it had the ability to fuse together universes, with some stipulations. Apparently, said universes have to be similar enough to fuse together, otherwise the fusion will not last. However, I, the genius that I am, had an idea. If I could fuse two universes that have absolutely no business being fused together, and then steal a few life forms from said universes before they reboot, is it possible that the fused being could stay stable? I decided to test out a few of these, and the results have been astounding. The first being I created was actually a whole race of aliens, but I was only able to preserve one copy. There were more, however, this species has a terrible habit of exploding themselves upon being defeated. Fortunately, this one self-destruct was jammed. These are the Mouchers, a group of aliens whose entire society is based around conquering planets. It's almost a form of status of who has conquered the most dangerous planet. They've also been shown to hunt down autistic people, which I don't quite understand, but you may be interested in. Anyway, this one in particular tried to conquer Earth. It landed its spaceship in the middle of the Amazon rainforest and immediately began to hunt down the humans. This thing's technology is, well, primitive compared to what I have access to, would be considered impressive by your standards. On top of guns, bombs, and their arm-mounted wrist blades, the Moucher can also turn themselves invisible. However, their most powerful weapons are their shoulder-mounted disintegrating pistols. These pistols can immediately disintegrate any foe they face, though they do have a 1 in 5 chance of accidentally disintegrating themselves. This was what caused the Moucher's failure to conquer Earth. During a fight with an Austrian-sounding human named Bugs, the pistol malfunctioned and allowed Bugs to get the upper hand. He was about to shoot the Moucher in the head when I intervened, taking out the human and capturing the alien. I then managed to convince this one here to be a personal bounty hunter, and he has been quite successful. This next one was significantly easier to convince, as he was not the smartest even before his transformation. Young Bob Voorhees was born with hydrocephalus, a condition that altered both his brain and his physical features. This obviously caused Bob to become the target of bullying. In case his life didn't suck enough, he also had an abusive father. Oh, right, sorry. Didn't mean to open up that wound. Anyway, his mother thought it'd be nice if Bob was able to get a job and gain some independence. Bob agreed, and together they filed out an application to work as a fry cook at a summer camp, Camp Crystal Crab. The summer came, and Bob set off for his new job, hoping to find new friends and new opportunities. However, this was not the case. Immediately, the campers began to fear Bob's appearance, and the other counselors began to tease him for it. Despite this, Bob thrived in the kitchen, quickly gaining proficiency at making hamburgers, which all the campers loved. Slowly but surely, the students began to respect him and his work ethic. And perhaps, in another universe, he could have continued to be accepted by society. However, some of the other counselors began to resent him for how much the students were loving him. So, one night, they hid behind a boat and waited for Bob to come around and pushed him into the lake, intending it to be a rude but ultimately harmless prank. However, they did not know at the time that Bob couldn't swim. He drowned, sinking to the bottom never to be seen again. Or so they thought. Somehow, a few years later, Bob re-emerged from the water, transformed into a monstrous killer, covered in yellow sea sponges. No one, including myself, is quite sure on how this happened. Some blamed the nuclear radiation that had been dropped into the lake a half-century prior, while others suspect it had something to do with the Deuteronomicon Ex Mortis, a book of the dead that was found just off the shore of the lake. Whatever the reason, SpongeBob Voorhees was back, raised from the dead to take revenge, and he was ready. This next one was also harder to convince and even harder to contain. Frizzle Krueger was well known throughout her school as a kind and loving teacher, one who constantly took her kids on field trips, with or without the permission of the school. However, what was not known about these supposed field trips was that they were merely covers for Krueger's murders. Every time Frizzle returned, she would come back with one less student. She would often make excuses, claiming they simply went home sick or even just wandered off. However, it wasn't long before other teachers and parents began to get wise to her scheme. She was arrested and put to trial, but was not convicted. Not only was the judge completely drunk out of his mind, but the warrant for her arrest had been missigned, making it null and void. Due to this technicality, Krueger was able to walk away free. I'll tell you, your human law system is quite idiotic. If this were to happen at my place, I'd be completely exiled. Again. Anyway, some of the parents decided to take justice into their own hands and managed to track Frizzle down. When the parents found her, she was busy building a new weapon, a clawed glove, in her base of operations, an old school bus. The parents then surrounded the bus and lit the vehicle aflame. Frizzle tried to escape the burning school bus, but found this task impossible. Or at least, it should have been. As her vision began to dim, a strange, lizard-like demon appeared before her. It introduced itself as Lizoth, the Dream Demon, and it was here to make a deal. The demon offered Frizzle the power to go into the dreams of her former students and to kill them there, which would also kill them in real life. Frizzle readily agreed, and the bus around her was transformed, gaining both sentience and the ability to travel into the dream world. From that point on, Frizzle Krueger went from student to student, killing to her heart's content. That was until her universe began to reboot. At that point, I took her from her universe and offered to increase her power if she offered to join our group. She agreed and has been working for us ever since. This last one, physically speaking, is the strongest experiment I have yet made. This monster was originally the brainchild of an engineer, a species of alien who are known for creating other aliens, named Jakiba. However, Jakiba was not the most sane of his kind, devoting most of his time into making horrific species that would be the bane of anyone who crossed them. The other engineers tolerated this until one experiment crossed the line. This experiment was called Xeno-626, and despite its small stature, it is quite intimidating. This entity has the ability to shapeshift, climb walls, lift 3,000 times its own weight, think faster than a supercomputer, is fireproof, acid-proof, bulletproof, and, in the near-impossible event that its skin is pierced, its blood is acidic. Seeing this abomination, the engineers decided it would be best simply to terminate it. However, Xeno-626 escaped, and managed to make its way to this universe's version of Earth, specifically the island of Kauai. Unfortunately, it also happened to cross the path of two humans, a young adult human female named Ripney, and her 14-year-old sister, Newtlo. Ripney worked on a boat called the Nostromo that took tourists around the Hawaiian Islands, and often took Newtlo to work with her. When Xeno-626 landed on the island, it was quickly found by Newtlo. As it was a cunning creature, Xeno-626 began to change its form, removing a few of its limbs and hiding the blade on its tail, so that it looked like an Earth cat, although blue and looking quite deformed. Any other human likely would have run away, but Newtlo was definitely not a normal human. She took the creature back to the ship and begged her sister to let her keep the creature. Ripney agreed, which was a near-fatal mistake. Over the next few days, Ripney began to notice strange behaviors from their new cat, which Newtlo had named Stitchy. On top of that, many of the tourists in the shop had begun to disappear. Eventually, Ripney became suspicious that the two were connected. She followed the cat down to the deck below, only to see the floor covered in the bodies of tourists, with their faces covered in a weird crab-like alien. Standing over there was Newtlo and Stitchy. Ripney hid behind a crate in order to watch what the creature did next. Suddenly, one of the tourists sat up, clutching its chest. He violently shook until a worm-like alien burst from his chest. Newtlo was horrified. She had been trying to help her new friend find a family, luring tourists for the creature to use, but this was too far. This caused Ripney to scream, alerting Stitchy to her location. A blade then erupted from its tail, and two more arms burst from its side. Ripney began to run as the creature chased after her. Ripney, trying to think of what to do next, ran up and grabbed her sister before heading onto the upper deck. The creature followed and soon cornered Ripney and her sister. Thinking quickly, she grabbed a chair and pushed the creature to the side of the ship. It fell into the ocean, and as it was unable to swim, began to drown. That was when I collected it. It took a while, but I eventually was able to find a suitable containment that wasn't immediately destroyed. Dropping this on our enemies will be very fun to watch.
Good work as always, Seller.